Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn. In today's episode, we're talking about Malachi Corley, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. Corley was first team All CUSA in 2022 and 2023. And stay tuned until the end of the video where we're going to go over some NFL comparisons for him based on his overall production data. So, with all that stuff out of the way, let's get into his production data. So first off, in terms of offensive market share production, he had a 63 percentile receiving market share production score, 79 percentile in terms of total offensive market share production, and then 86 percentile in terms of his touchdown market share production score. These numbers are fairly decent for a wide receiver like him in many different ways. Also, when you get into his efficiency scores, which is things like yards per touch and touchdowns per touch, or I should say yards per reception, he did really well in terms of his touchdowns per touch, but didn't really do so well in terms of yards per reception. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that the offensive scheme that he played at Western Kentucky, there was a lot of screens, a lot of short to intermediate routes for him. So a lot of just giving him the ball and letting him do something with it. So because of that, it kind of lowers his yards per reception when you add in all those plays that kind of ended up being dead because they were either behind the line of scrimmage or, short yardage type plays. Kind of used more as a running back than a wide receiver in some ways. Now, when you get into his wide receiver athleticism traits, he was very impressive. 89 percentile in terms of explosion, and then 89 percentile in terms of speed, and then 83 percentile in terms of flexibility for his size. I haven't got any explosion testing for him yet, but this is impressive. This is very impressive speed and flexibility. It's evident on film when you watch him. You see that speed, you see that flexibility, that dynamic ability, that shiftiness, and that's definitely an impressive trait for him. Now, in terms of his adjusted production scores, adjusted production takes a look at strength of schedule, strength of team, and the age of the prospect. Taking a look at this data, he had a 77 percentile age score, 59 percentile in terms of his MSA rating, and 69 percentile in terms of his pass rating. So his MSA rating was not that great. His efficiency kind of bumps his data up in a lot of ways because of the level of competition he had. He played at Western Kentucky, didn't play at Alabama, didn't play at an SEC program. And because of that, you're going to have these inefficiencies in terms of his data that you have to kind of account for. Now, when you get to his pro comparisons, this is where things get a little scary because in terms of pro comparisons for him, there's not a lot of successful players with this profile. When you adjust for his age and adjust for all the other factors that he had, most of the wide receivers that tested like him, like D'Angelo Yancey, Jonathan Adams Jr., Eric Thomas, Sunbelt, not from the same conference, obviously, but it was in kind of a lower level division, school. Not a lot of successful outcomes here. So doesn't mean that he's going to be a bust because there's always going to be new trends in the data going forward, especially with the spread offenses becoming more prevalent nowadays. But that's just a concern here with him is there's not a whole lot of successful wide receivers to point to based on his overall production data with his age and all those other factors. Let's get to the overall outlook for Corley. Malachi Corley profiles as a backup to Outlier Pro Bowl based on his data profile. He has near elite speed and near elite flexibility for his size, which is evident on film. However, his production for his level of competition does not translate to high quality outcomes in the NFL. He's closer to a starter than a high quality starter based on his data, but he is one of the better wide receivers in this draft class. So regardless of how you view Corley as a prospect, and in many ways, I think you have to kind of give him that, in many ways, is that he did test really well as an athlete. He played in an offense which was going to skew your numbers into a negative way, just to be honest. And then on top of all that, he played in a conference that is really not that significant in the grand scheme of things from a college football perspective. All those things are going to drag his profile down, and usually you're going to find some diamonds in the rough when that happens. You're going to see some guys that the data didn't really track them as efficiently as they probably should have. Antonio Brown is another wide receiver comes to mind. It's kind of like that. He had now he had better data overall than Corley, but he did have some issues dropping him a little bit because he played at Central Michigan. That could be a similar issue with a guy like Corley. So he is an exciting prospect in many ways, but those are just the general concerns for him. All that stuff out of the way, check out some more videos right here. Make sure you join my Patreon, patreon.com/jcoburn. Become a paid subscriber there. It really helps the channel out a lot to get content out. When you become a paid subscriber, you get access to multiple avenues of different things in terms of posts about different data profiles, etc. You get to know stuff early before everybody else does on there. Also, check out my X, formerly known as Twitter account, @Geometrics. And also like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel out a lot. That really helps the channel out a lot when you do that. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.